If you joined us in one of our last episodes, you know we debunked 10 of the most common myths surrounding bankruptcy. We showed you that bankruptcy isn't what most people think. It's actually a tool designed to help you get a fresh start. In today's episode, we're going to tackle another 5 bankruptcy misconceptions, giving you the clarity and confidence you need to make informed financial decisions. I'm your host, Attorney Sean, and today we're continuing our deep dive into Chapter 7 Bankruptcy Misconceptions. Let's dive right into myth number 1. Bankruptcy will destroy my financial future. When people think about filing for bankruptcy, one of the biggest fears I hear is if I do this, my financial future is over. The thought of losing the ability to rebuild, buy a home, or even get a car is terrifying. But here's the good news. Bankruptcy is not the dead end of your financial future. The reality of rebuilding after bankruptcy? It's real. Yes, your credit score is going to take an initial hit. But many people find that their credit starts to improve within just a few months after the discharge. Why? Because bankruptcy wipes away everything that's been dragging you down. And once that's gone, you have a clean slate to start rebuilding. The long-term benefits of bankruptcy? It's important to think of bankruptcy as a reset button. Once you're free from overwhelming debt, you can focus on smart financial habits like using a secured credit card, making payments on time, and keeping your debt-to-income ratio low. Some of my clients have even qualified for car loans and mortgages within 2 to 3 years of filing. If you want to see more, tune into our episode where we had 720 credit score on talking about how to immediately get that impact. So here's a real-world story. I had a client who was terrified that filing for bankruptcy meant they'd never own a home. But within 2 years of their discharge, they qualified for a mortgage and were able to buy their first home. Bankruptcy didn't ruin their financial future. It gave them the fresh start they needed. So, let's debunk this myth right now. Filing for bankruptcy doesn't destroy your financial future. It gives you a chance to rebuild it. With the right steps, you can recover and even thrive after bankruptcy. If you're worried about your future after bankruptcy, remember this. Bankruptcy is a tool designed to help you. It's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a stronger financial future. If you're feeling unsure, reach out to us and we'll help you explore the possibilities. Myth number 2. Everyone will know I filed for bankruptcy. Let's move on to another misconception that causes a lot of anxiety. Everyone will know I filed for bankruptcy. I understand how scary that sounds. No one wants their personal financial struggles out in the open for everyone to see. But here's the truth. Bankruptcy is a lot more private than you think. Privacy in bankruptcy filings? Yes, bankruptcy is technically a matter of public record. But the chances of someone actively searching for your filings are slim. It's not going to be published in the newspaper or blasted on social media. The reality is, unless you tell someone, it's unlikely they will ever know. I once worked with a client who was worried their colleagues would find out about their bankruptcy. But after filing, no one even knew. Their bankruptcy stayed private and they were able to move forward without worrying about what other people thought. Now don't get me wrong. There are some financial industries that you do need to, let's say you're a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner, or somebody that works in stocks. You may need to tell your regulatory commission about the bankruptcy, but that's not the case for 95% of people. So let's debunk this myth. Bankruptcy isn't a public announcement, it's a private process. If the fear of everyone knowing is holding you back from filing, remember, bankruptcy is designed to help you regain control, not expose you. Myth number 3. You can't get credit after bankruptcy. This next myth is probably one of the biggest ones. In fact, I spent a whole show talking about how you can get credit after bankruptcy. The myth is if I ever file for bankruptcy, I'll never be able to get credit again. It's definitely understandable to think this way, especially when credit is such an important part of one's life. It determines so much. It determines if you can get a place to live. It determines how much your car payment's going to be. But here's the truth. Bankruptcy doesn't prevent you from getting credit. Here's how credit works post-bankruptcy. Once you've filed bankruptcy, you can start getting new credit. There are even lenders out there that will give you a vehicle, assuming you have a job and you make a certain amount of income within the next couple days after you file bankruptcy. And again, we spent a whole episode on this. We talked to Philip Tyrone, the owner of 720 Credit Score, and he went through everything on how to rebuild your credit after bankruptcy. Once your bankruptcy is discharged, so on a Chapter 7 case, it's typically around 120 days from the date of filing, sometimes sooner, sometimes later. It depends on your specific case. But most people, it's within that 90 to 120 day period. But once your bankruptcy is discharged or your debt is discharged, lenders know you've wiped out all of your old debts. And many are willing to offer you new credit. You might not qualify for a large credit line right away, but you need to start small. Just a secured credit card or small loan is the key to rebuild slowly and responsibly. 720 says you need 2 secured credit cards and auto payment. Those are really important. Using a secured credit card and making regular on-time payments is a great way to rebuild your credit. Over time, your score will improve, and within a few years, many people qualify for mortgages or better credit cards. So bankruptcy isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. I once had a client who thought they'd never be able to finance a car after bankruptcy, but just days after filing, they were able to get a new car. Maybe not a new car, but it was new to them. It was a used car. One that they could afford, because most importantly, you don't want to set yourself up for something that you can't afford. Bankruptcy didn't stop them. It helped them. It gave them that first start. So let's debunk this myth once and for all. You can get credit after bankruptcy. In fact, it's important to get credit after bankruptcy because it's all about rebuilding wisely. Many people are surprised at how quickly they're able to recover and even improve their credit after filing. In fact, our credit reports, when we have to pull your credit report when you file, it shows what the expected score after you file will be. And that's if you do nothing. So if you're worried that bankruptcy will stop you from ever getting credit again, I want you to know that it's just not true. Bankruptcy helps you reset. And with the right steps, you can rebuild your credit and your financial future. And we're here to guide you every step of the way. Myth number 4. If I file for bankruptcy, I'll lose my job. This next myth is a tough one because it hits close to home for so many people. The fear that filing for bankruptcy could cost you your job, it's real. But let me clear this up for you. Filing for bankruptcy alone doesn't mean you'll lose your job. There are legal protections in place to prevent your employer from firing just because you filed for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a personal financial decision, and your employer can't discriminate against you from seeking help through the process. When bankruptcy could matter? Well, as I mentioned earlier, if you work in a finance or a highly regulated field, bankruptcy might raise some questions. But it's not an automatic reason for termination. For most people, your job is safe. I've even had folks in the military who had top secret clearance that a bankruptcy did not affect that clearance. Again, there are exceptions, but most of the time your employers won't even know that you chose to file unless you tell them. I also had a client who worked in the corporate world and was terrified that filing for bankruptcy would cost them their job. So let's debunk this myth once and for all. Filing for bankruptcy just doesn't mean you're going to lose your job. Your financial choices are protected by law, and in many cases, your employer won't even be aware of your filing unless you choose to tell them. Myth number 5, you can only file for Chapter 7 once. Now let's move on to a myth that makes people think that they're out of options. You can only file for Chapter 7 once. Many people believe if they filed for bankruptcy before, they can't do it again. That's just not the case. The truth about multiple filings, you can file for Chapter 7 more than once, but there are rules in place. If you filed for a Chapter 7 and received a discharge, you'll need to wait 8 years before filing for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. If you filed for Chapter 13, the waiting period might be shorter, around 4 years, if you got that same discharge. Bankruptcy laws are designed to give you a second or even a third chance if needed. Just this morning, I had a 341 hearing where a client was on her third bankruptcy. Now, that wasn't because that they were reckless or they did something that they shouldn't have. Life happened, and now they're able to again rebuild their life. Medical bills from a few years ago put them in a financial trouble again. We helped them file, giving them the relief that they needed to move forward. So let's debunk this myth. And mind you, this is one of the most common bankruptcy questions that's searched on Google. Can you file a Chapter 7 more than once? Yes, you can. But there are rules. The system's designed to help, even if life throws you another financial challenge down the road. So if you're worried that you've already used that one chance as bankruptcy, I want you to know that the law is built to support you, and if life knocks you down again, bankruptcy is there to give you a fresh start, whenever you need it. Today, we've tackled 5 more myths surrounding specifically Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I hope you're feeling more empowered to take control of your financial life, because bankruptcy isn't the end of your story. It's a tool to help you reset and rebuild. If you have any questions or you're unsure, please feel free to reach out to my office. We're here to guide you every step of the way. Again, this is Law Unpacked. I'm Attorney Sean, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.